1 teaspoon of sugar is the amount of sugar that you put into your 1 cup of tea, and it is the equivalent amount of sugar that your body can handle at any given point of time. In other words, it is the amount of glucose that is running into your bloodstream at any given point of time. If it goes beyond that, your body tries to bring it back to normal, and that is equivalent to 1 tablespoon of sugar or 5 to 6 grams of sugar at any given point of time. Why does this happen? Why does your body want it back to normal? Because it is toxic. It kills you from inside, and that is why carbohydrates and sugars are to be managed not only by diabetics, who definitely have to manage their blood sugar levels, but non-diabetics as well. That is what we are going to discuss into this video, that it is very much important for the diabetics to control their blood sugar level, but it is equally as important for the non-diabetics to control their blood sugar level, because the kind of damage that diabetics are taken into their body from inside is also the damage, though at a smaller scale, that is happening to the non-diabetics as well, according to the recent sciences. And for Indians, or for India, where 10 to 12% of population is diabetic, where majority of our food sources or food comes from carbohydrate, and we have another large chunk of population which is pre-diabetic and which has insulin resistance. So it becomes very important, not just for the diabetics or Indian diabetics, to understand what sugar does to you. It equally is important for the non-diabetics to understand what the sugar does to your body, even if you are thinking you have a healthy metabolic functioning. Hi, I am Rishabh, an ex-IT professional and a former banker as well, and now dedicating my time to the study and implementation of science of healthy living and science of longevity. You can find more about me into the description. Now, in this video, we are gonna basically talk a few points about the science of why you should be regulating your blood sugar levels, even if you're non-diabetic, and how to practically implement some hacks to stabilize and reduce your blood sugar level, even if you're non-diabetic and even if you're diabetic. Number 1 is, why should a non-diabetic consider regulating his blood sugar levels? Why should he even think about it if he is non-diabetic, if he has a good functioning metabolic system? First thing. Secondly, the implication of higher blood sugars and the science of this thing, that what are the effects and implications of higher blood sugar levels have on your body, which actually kills you from inside and eventually leads to the fatalities like cardiovascular events or something else. Thirdly, how can we practically control our blood sugar levels? And what are the scientific hacks we can implement in our daily routine to mitigate those effects which a high blood sugar level may have on your body? So, before moving ahead, let us all admit one thing, that sugar is addictive, and there is a science to it. It makes you crave for eating more and more. It triggers some of the factors, some of the pathways in your neurological and physiological system. So it acts from both sides. From your brain side, it activates your brain to eat more sugar, as well as it activates your endocrine system into such a way that it stimulates you to eat more and more sugar. This discussion will probably take in the upcoming future videos. This is not part of today's video, but this is a very important thing to consider, that you are not the culprit if you are eating a lot of sugar right now. It is not your fault. You have been designed in the evolutionary pathway to be attracted towards eating sugar through both neurological and your physiological pathways. So it is not your fault if you're eating a lot of sugar right now. We just have to consider how to reduce that craving and how to control our blood sugar level, so that we do not have to face those implications which a diabetic has to face. And those implications may be even cardiovascular events, strokes, kidney failures, and other types of ailments, which may lead to instant fatalities or even may lead to a long, slow, painful death. Okay, so one more point, that in this video I may be using sugar and carbohydrate interchangeably, because anything which goes beyond your gut lining, beyond your stomach and intestine into your bloodstream is glucose. Any kind of carbohydrate you eat, whether it is through chapati, whether it is through fruits, whether it is through any kind of food item you eat, it will eventually become glucose into your bloodstream. And what is the amount of glucose that your bloodstream can handle at any given point of time is 5 to 6 grams. Beyond that, it is toxic, and that is why you are evolutionarily designed to reduce it to that level of blood sugar, which is generally in standards of medical system, it is around 80 to 120 milligram per deciliter of glucose level at any given point of time. Now consider one situation. Suppose you went to a doctor, and the doctor for some reason wants to understand or wants to assess you whether you are diabetic or not diabetic. He will send you to a pathology lab where they will draw a certain amount of blood from your bloodstream and will send that sample amount of blood to the testing lab, and then the results would come. They will put you into the parameters of what the world level standards of diabetic considerations are kept. If your fasting glucose level goes beyond suppose 100, you are considered a pre-diabetic, and if it goes beyond 126, you are considered a diabetic. Similarly, another test, HbA1c, if it goes beyond 5.6, you are considered pre-diabetic, and if it goes beyond 6.4, you are considered a proper diabetic. But if your results are in normal range, for example, recently one of my friend who sent me his medical reports, well, I'm not a doctor, but I have some experience looking into these medical reports, because I myself had to go through such situations where I had to assess my own medical reports, and that's where my journey started of learning about your own body and learning about the science of healthy living. So his HbA1c was around 5.4 or so, 5.2 and 5.4 or so. Do doctors consider him to be a diabetic? Absolutely not. So is he allowed to eat anything what he wants to because he's in the non-diabetic range? Is it something like if you are at 5.5 you are non-diabetic, 5.5 of HbA1c you are non-diabetic, and if you are 5.7 of HbA1c you are diabetic? It is not like that. It does not go digital. It does not go into binaries. It is a spectrum. It is a spectrum of physiological health. On the one end you are healthy, and on the other end you are diabetic. And the HbA1c of 5.6 comes somewhere in middle. So if you are moving from here to here, that is from somewhere below, let us take it to be HbA1c of 4, if you are moving from 4 to 5.6, you are actually getting closer to being diabetic. You are actually getting unhealthier day by day and moving towards diabetes. At cellular level, you are actually making those changes in your body, which is creating a diabetic personality within you, a diabetic human physiological system within you. So even if you are at 5.2 or 5.3 of HbA1c, you are relatively unhealthier than somebody at 4.0 of HbA1c or 4.5 of HbA1c. So it is a spectrum of being a relatively more healthier or more unhealthier. So what that means is, what I want to point out here is, even if you are in the healthy range of HbA1c, suppose 5.0, you're not freed from worrying anything about eating junk food or sugary food or carbohydrate laden foods. I actually wanted to talk about this study which was conducted by Boston University School of Medicine, and it was dated in September of 2024, where they conducted a study on a large population, on a large set of data, who were given continuous glucose monitor and were checked every 5 minutes. After every 5 minutes their blood glucose level was checked, and these were people who were metabolically healthy. They did not have any metabolic disorder, they did not have diabetes. And the study reads, they were given CGM, that is continuous glucose monitor. These are the devices that check your glucose at every certain interval at 5 minutes or so. So you have a very good check of what any kind of food does to your body. The study says the sensor measured glucose level in the interstitial fluid, that is the blood, every 5 minutes throughout their participation. They observed that normoglycemic participants, basically those participants who did not have any metabolic syndromes or who did not have diabetes at all, spent on an average approximately 3 hours a day with glucose levels over 140 mg per deciliter, and may even experience glucose level of 180 mg of sugar in their bloodstream for some time. So what does that show? That shows that the blood glucose level which is considered unhealthy, which is 140 mg and above, which was considered by the doctors that a normal functioning person, normal metabolic person will never experience. A person having normal metabolic functioning will never experience. And if those persons are given continuous glucose monitor and are monitored at every 5 minutes or so and are continuously monitored basically, so they do also experience such high levels of blood sugar level, okay, which is not only 140 mg per deciliter but may even go above 180 mg per deciliter. And such study was also conducted by, I think, Harvard University and various other universities in the recent past. And even if you see the influencers out there in the market, they are also trying to bring out this thing. They are also wearing that has basically become a trend, that you wear a continuous glucose monitor on your elbow, on your arm, and post it to the Instagram and get a lot of views. So this shows that not only the diabetics have to think about their blood sugar levels, also the non-diabetics have to think about it. Now, the only difference which will come is the amount of spike that a diabetic and non-diabetic will have, and the duration or the extended time period for which the blood sugar level remains high. And probably these two parameters are very important. For a diabetic, it will have a higher spike and an extended period of time for the blood sugar to be high. And for a non-diabetic, it will have a relatively lower amount of spike, but actually above. If you eat sugary foods, if you eat junk food, if you eat vada pav, pizza, burger and anything like Coke or fruit juices, you will have a spike over 140 mg per deciliter. You may have, depending upon how healthy are you, how good functioning is your metabolic system, and it will remain there above 140 or probably even may go above 160 for some time, which will be lower than a diabetic person if you are a non-diabetic. So even if a non-diabetic has lower spike compared to a diabetic, and probably for a shorter duration of time, if his blood sugar levels are going beyond what is considered healthy, and if it goes into the danger levels, the glucose, the extra glucose running into the bloodstream will have those detrimental effects, those risks associated with a fully diabetic person, though at a lower scale. This means non-diabetics are also currently in this era of living, in this era of food habits of junk foods, and this era of lethargy and non-activity, they are also at risk of all those eventualities which a diabetic person may have. Now, how does this matters? How does this high glucose in blood sugar and the time period for which it remains into the blood matters? What processes it creates within the body which are detrimental and eventually create fatalities to the human system? Consider it like a car engine. If your body is a car engine, and if you run it, if you press your accelerator full, and if you run your car in high RPMs, very high RPMs, consider high RPM to be high blood sugar levels, and if it remains high for a longer duration of time, it will start to damage the pistons, it will start to damage the engine from inside, and the car may look good from outside, but eventually it will crumble from inside. This is the same thing which happens with the body. It may not even seem bad from outside. It may not feel anything from outside, but inside your body is going through all the processes which is killing you from inside, which is damaging, which is rusting, which is actually making your body degenerated from the inside. And it may take a lot of time before it actually gives any symptoms in the outside. So all the symptoms of diabetic pathologies or the diseases associated with diabetes, and even the diabetes itself, can be only observed after some time period, which may even last for around 2 decades or 3 decades after you get diabetes. For example, let us take an example of diabetic nephropathy, that is the damage of kidneys due to diabetes. The symptoms of diabetic nephropathy may not come up and may not be observable even after the onset of diabetes for around even can take around 2 to 3 decades also, depending upon the severity and average glucose level. One of the major symptoms of diabetic nephropathy is swelling in feet or swelling in eyes or so, that may not even be observable even if your kidneys are damaged to the extent of 50 to 60 or even 70%. So it is important to consider the risks associated with diabetes and risk associated with diabetes to the non-diabetic person. Let us now directly talk about the processes which actually happen within the body if your blood sugar level remains high for an extended period of time. That is, if you have high glucose level even if you are non-diabetic, because you are eating some kind of junk food, some kind of sugary food which has a high glycemic load and also may have high glycemic index. That is, it is releasing large amount of sugars for an extended period of time towards your bloodstream. So let us talk about the first risk factor, that is the process of glycation. And the word itself comes from the word glucose, and the process glycation is related to glucose. It is like rusting from inside. It is like aging from inside. It may lead to cardiovascular diseases. It may lead to deposition of plaques into your arteries. It may lead to hardening of your arteries. It may even lead to diabetic nephropathy or hardening of the interior nephrons of your kidneys and various other things. What actually this glycation process is? Well, technically speaking, and I will read it out from the Wikipedia page itself, that glycation is the covalent attachment of sugar to a protein, lipid or nucleic acid molecule. Simply said, glycation is the process where the glucose which is running into your bloodstream gets attached to the freely flowing proteins or amino acids, freely flowing fatty acids, and also the DNA of your body. It gets attached to these things and impair their functioning. It is something like when you put a sugary paste into some food, it becomes very sticky. The same thing happens within your body. This sugar wraps around things and make them sticky and non-functional. It is as simple as that. Imagine a fat molecule roaming around into your bloodstream freely and moving around with certain objective. The objective could be to go around and deposit into a fat cell and become triglyceride and eventually become the fat of your body, the subcutaneous fat of your body. Or the objective could be go around and move into a cell, go to the mitochondria, oxidize and release energy. But if glucose of your bloodstream gets attached to this fat molecule, right? Glucose attaches to this fat molecule, making it sticky, it will lose its function, right? So it is as simple as that. Your body will start to degrade from inside nutritionally and quality wise. That means when the glucose in your body or sugar of your body into your bloodstream is attached to a protein molecule, a fat molecule, or a nucleic acid, or what we can say DNA of your body, it will eventually impair the functions of those molecules. It further says typical sugars that participate in glycation are glucose, fructose and their derivatives. Okay. Glycation is the non-enzymatic process responsible for many micro and macrovascular complications in diabetes and is implicated in some diseases and in aging. So this the process of glycation is related to diabetes. It has many implications including aging and many other diseases. Now, the Wikipedia page further says that the glycation process is implicated in many age-related chronic diseases, including cardiovascular diseases and Alzheimer's disease. So these both basically are related to diabetes and glycation. And this glycation process is basically the process by the virtue of which we are able to find out, or we are able to calculate the amount of average blood sugar that was there in the past 3 months in your bloodstream. And that is what the HbA1c tells us, because this HbA1c basically measures the amount of glycation that your RBCs or red blood cells had to face or had to handle in the past 120 days or 3 months. Further, it says that your DNA can sustain substantial glycation over time, but it will have to face damages due to the process of glycation. Damage by the process of glycation results in stiffening of collagen of blood vessel walls. Basically, it leads to the damage of the collagen within your blood vessels and the lining of your blood vessels, and which eventually leads to stiffening of your blood vessels, and which may lead to high blood pressure and eventually stroke. Also, it talks about the damage of the process of glycation over the DNA, which may lead to wrong epigenetic expressions. And by that, what I mean is your DNA will be damaged, the expression of your DNA will be damaged, leading to various kind of diseases which may trigger things like cancer and may trigger things like cardiovascular diseases. Also, this process of glycation interferes with the functioning of your LDL and HDL. Your LDL, that is low density lipoprotein, and HDL, high density lipoproteins, are the carriers of various nutrients within your body, right? So these are the lipoproteins. These molecules are made by protein as well as a fat molecule, which are basically the carriers of nutrients within your body. So glycation process also hinders or interferes with the functioning of these carriers of nutrients, that is LDL and HDL. Basically, this is very beautifully explained in the thing about LDL and HDL is very beautifully explained in a book named Deep Nutrition by Dr. Shanahan, I think. And the glycation process leads to higher level of LDLs, which are more related to the cardiovascular events and are related to low level of HDLs. And that is why those people who are having diabetes will have a very low level of HDLs and higher level of LDLs in their body. And the amount of glycation in your body, and that can be calculated with certain kinds of methodologies, is also considered a parameter of aging. So it is basically one of those hallmarks of aging, which scientists, which doctors consider as a reflection of the biological age of yours. So if you're having high glycation in your body, that is high amount of blood sugar levels running in your body, you will be aging much faster, right? And that is why your body wants to throw out any extra amount of sugar that is running in your body, right? Another thing about this glycation process is that it leads to damage to your brain, and that is why diabetics are at much higher risk of diseases like Alzheimer's. This glycation process actually kills the dendrites, the fabric of the web of neurons in your brain. So in this photo you may be seeing in front of your screen, you can directly see the difference between a healthy neuron which is having a lot of dendrites and an unhealthy glycated neurons, where all the neurons are, all the dendrites are dead, and the amount of dendrites or the amount of branches that are coming out of that stem of neuron is directly related to the intelligence, is directly related to the brain health of a person. So this is also very much dangerous for a human body, to sustain a higher amount of blood sugar level in the body, which may eventually lead to damages to your brain. Okay, so this was the process of glycation and its implication over your physiology, and includes various things like brain damage, like cardiovascular events, like thickening of blood vessels and rusting of blood vessels from inside. DNA damage was one of those things, and it is directly related to aging. Okay, now secondly, let us talk about one more thing which happens when your blood sugar level remains high for a longer duration of time, even if you're non-diabetic, is the mitochondrial dysfunction. So mitochondria is one of those organelles, one of those tiny bodies within your body cells, which are the powerhouse of your system. Mitochondria are the places where all the energy are produced of your bodies. So if your mitochondria is dysfunctioned, you will have low energy levels, and this is why diabetics have very, very low energy and they are lethargic. Also, those person having higher HbA1c, even if they are in the ranges of non-diabetic ranges like 5.4, 5.3, if that is higher, they will not have a good amount of energy to function all over the day. Their energy would be fluctuating and their energy would be down most of the time. This is due to the mitochondrial dysfunction. So higher glucose level has been observed to be associated with dysfunction in the mitochondria, with the shutdown of mitochondria, and even to the lowering of density of mitochondria within your body. Lesser number of mitochondria, lesser number of energy, lesser the activities you will be able to do, lesser the activities you will be able to do, the more risk of diabetes you will be having, the more risk of other eventualities you will be having. Third thing which I want to talk about, which is related to high level of blood sugar for an extended period of time, even if you are non-diabetic, is the release of insulin. So insulin is one of the most anabolic hormone, and that is why many bodybuilders use it for muscle growth. Insulin, the main function of insulin is basically to reduce your blood glucose level. So if you eat a lot of carbohydrate, your body, your pancreas will start secreting a lot of insulin, which will try to put away the extra amount of blood glucose roaming around into your bloodstream, into the cells, and if your cells are full, then into the muscles and the liver as glycogen. So the consequences of large amount of insulin which is secreted when you eat a large amount of carbohydrate is that it will eventually lead to low level of blood sugar in your body. The blood sugar increases, right? Your insulin increases, it tries to suppress your blood sugar, because the insulin is released a lot, it will lower your blood sugar level towards the lower end of the threshold and beyond the lower end of threshold. That will make you again crave for sugars. That will make you eat more sugar, and the cycle keeps on going. You eat a lot of sugar or carbohydrate, as I use them interchangeably sometimes. So the cycle keeps on going. You eat a lot of sugar, it will release a lot of insulin, then the lowering of blood sugar, and again you will eat a lot of sugar and then a lot of insulin and lowering of blood sugar. So the cycle keeps on going, and it will lead to the high amount of insulin within your body, which may again create a lot of craving. And this whole process of cyclic ups and downs of your insulin, of your blood sugar levels, will make you eat more sugar eventually, and more sugar means more glycation. More glycation means faster aging and faster diseases. So these are the three processes by which higher sugar levels will eventually kill you from inside, even if you're non-diabetic, even if you're in the healthier range of, even if you are in the threshold ranges of HbA1c, you are at 5.4, 5.3, you may be experiencing these things unknowingly from the inside of your body. Right. Now let us talk about few practical steps, and these are scientific as well, which you can implement to reduce your blood sugar spikes and keep your blood sugar level within the healthier range, preferably below 120 mgdl in whole of your day. And I also apply these simple scientific hacks into my daily life in order to regulate my blood sugar levels. Number one is what I call as two-factor analysis. Whenever you eat anything, whenever you eat any carbohydrate-rich food, carbohydrate-laden food, sugar-laden food, you will have to keep into your mind two things. One is the glycemic index of that food, and the second is glycemic load of that food. By glycemic index, I mean the speed with which it releases glucose into your body. For example, refined sugar might release the glucose into our bloodstream very, very fast, and on the other hand, a orange or an apple will actually be releasing sugar relatively slower into our bloodstream. And in comparison, one millet chapati that may be of bajra, jawar or something, one millet chapati will be even more slower than the fruit itself. So this will basically reduce the amount of glucose that is going into a bloodstream. So if you eat like 10 grams of glucose or 10 grams of sugar or carbohydrate in one go, the 10 grams from direct sugar, direct refined white sugar, will require somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes to go into a bloodstream. If it is from the fruit, it may take half an hour, and if it is from the chapati, the millet chapati, it will take around 1 hour, 1.5 hours take to go into our bloodstream. So you will have to keep in mind, always keep in mind the glycemic index. And second, which is glycemic load, it is basically the amount of carbohydrate that is going inside your body from a particular meal. For example, if you eat one small candy, it may have around 2 to 3 grams of carbohydrates, and instead if you eat one chapati, it will have around 30 grams of carbohydrate. So at one side it is 2 to 3 grams of carbohydrate, and at the other side it is around 30 grams of carbohydrate. Though the glycemic index are different, the glycemic index of the candy will be much higher, so it will be released into the bloodstream much faster, but that will be only 2 to 3 grams of glycemic load. And on the other hand, the glycemic load of the chapati will be 30 grams, but it will be released over a period of time, over 1.5 hours. So you will always have to think about the glycemic index and glycemic load and have to bring about a balance between them. If you are eating a high glycemic index food, that is those foods which release sugar into the bloodstream very fast, you will have to take small portion of that. And if you want to eat more carbohydrate, you will have to focus more on those carbohydrates which are low on glycemic index. So that means if you want to keep your glycemic index high just for your taste, you'll have to take the glycemic load low. And if you want to keep your glycemic load high, if you want to eat more carbohydrates, you'll have to take down the glycemic index. So that is what you have to keep in mind every time you eat any food, and that will eventually become a habit for you. That is because we do not want sugar to be too high in our body and for a too long period of time. Both factors are important. The amount of sugar is also important, and the time for it remains into our bloodstream is also important. That is why balancing glycemic index and glycemic load is the key. Second, always take a heavy breakfast with a lot of fats and protein. And this is what I generally do in order to keep my blood sugar levels steady throughout the day. Two things it leads to. One, it does not raises your blood sugar level much. Secondly, it literally keeps your energy levels high during the daytime. It keeps you satiated for around 3, 4, even 5 to 6 hours if you take a large amount of protein and fat in the first meal of your day. Another point which is basically related to this point only, that you should be eating a lot of fats and protein in the first meal of your day so that you are satiated for longer period of time, you have low sugar cravings, is that you should be avoiding fruits as your first meal of your day. Well, it has become a tradition in India that many of people are preaching that you should be having fruits as the first meal of your day, and they attach somewhere to Ayurveda or somewhere. But that may be dreadful for your body, that may be dangerous to your body, because fruits are laden with carbohydrates. They are nutritionally not very much dense. They are mostly carbohydrate and sugar. So if you eat carbohydrates as that also fast releasing carbohydrate with high glycemic index, if you eat such types of fruits in the first meal of your day, you will again have an insulin spike and then a low and then again sugar craving, and this cycle keeps on repeating. So the second point was that you should be having a lot of fats and proteins as the first meal of your day. That will keep you satiated for longer periods of time. That may even allow you to eat breakfast in the morning, have some evening snacks in the daytime, and eventually eating your dinner at the evening. You will not be basically thinking about food in the daytime because you are satiated all the times. Third hack which we can implement in our daily life is that adding fiber or salads to your food to each and every of your meal in the start. This will actually decrease the overall glycemic index of your overall food composition. So if you are eating a carbohydrate mix of around 100 grams in your meal, front loading it with salads and fiber will eventually reduce the glycemic index, will reduce the absorption rate of that carbohydrates. So you can actually have some kind of high glycemic index foods which you may like to eat, but front load it with a lot of salad and lot of fibers. Fourth, whenever you want to have desserts or whenever you want to have sweets, either have them at the end of your meal, first thing, or if you want to have sweets out of your meal routine, you might add nuts to it, right? There are two things why you should be adding nuts to it. One thing, that nuts are rich in fats, and the fat will again reduce the absorption rate of sugar from the dessert, and it will eventually lead to lower sugar spike and lower insulin spike and prevent you from the cycles of spikes and cravings. Secondly, the nuts are very well mixed with the desserts. That means nuts do not degrade the taste of your desserts, and in some cases it can also enhance the taste of your dessert because it has a lot of fats which enhance the taste of your various food items. Fifth, adding vinegar or lemon juice to high carbs food. So whenever you are having a high carb meal, you may front load it with either salad, or you can front load it with vinegar or lemon juice. Vinegar and lemon juice have been shown to reduce your blood sugar spikes by around 30%, by up to 30%. And if you can, then front load any of your high carb meal with a lot of salad dressed with a lot of vinegar or lemon juice. So these were the hacks that you can implement in your daily life in order to reduce your blood sugar spikes, so that you do not have to go through the damages of the processes of glycation, which is associated with the high amount of blood sugar going through your bloodstreams for extended period of time. These included, you must always consider glycemic index and glycemic load while eating food. Secondly, you should have a heavy breakfast, mainly laden with fats and proteins, as the first meal of your day, and avoid fruits as the first meal of your day. Thirdly, add fiber or salad to your foods which are laden with carbohydrate. Fourthly, add vinegar or lemon juice to the foods which are laden with carbohydrates. And fifth, add desserts with nuts. These 5 hacks will actually and practically and scientifically will be helping you regulate your blood sugar levels, so that you do not have to worry about the amount of blood sugar spikes our Indian diet will have on your body.